folks, what is going on? This will be a second video I'm putting out again. The first one was involving the group MTOI, Messianic Torah Observant Israel. This one, again, dealing with Colossians 2, 16 and 17, but this one's going to be with SHEEPDOG Ministries. I don't think this one's going to be as long, but again, first things first, remember Acts 17:11. Search the scriptures daily to see if what I'm telling you is true. Or anyone, folks, comes up with the Bible, starts telling you this and that, folks. Just don't take their word for it. Be as a noble Bereans. They were eager to receive the word from the Apostle Paul, but they did their due diligence in the fact that they just didn't take his word at it. Unlike the Thessalonians that did, they searched the scriptures to see if what he was saying is true. The reason why we do that is because many false teachers have gone out in the world and have deceived many, and will continue to do that, just become worse and worse. I pray I'm not one of them, folks. I mean that. I tell Yahweh, I got nothing but you. I don't like to tell people, but you don't tell Yahweh, no, there's a short, you get up and do your job. So that's what I'm doing, guys. But remember, be as a noble Bereans, Acts 17:11, and search these things, including what I say, folks. So with that being said and done, again, like I've said before in the first video and the videos yesterday, if you I'm just using an analogy in driving. Before we had GPS, when you used to use the road maps, if you're going out of state, going on a long journey, if you take a wrong turn at that fork in the road unknowingly, you could go for miles and miles and then make another turn thinking that you're still on that right road, and now it's just going to compound itself until you hit that point where you realize, I think I made a wrong turn. Okay, that, if back before we had GPS in those days, that's the best analogy I could use. That's the same situation with people that desire to be teachers of the law, that confidently affirm they know what they're saying, but they don't know what they're saying. Get into, if they miss that fork in the road, I would say where our Savior, when they look at Matthew 5:17, think not that I came to destroy the law of the prophets, I came not to destroy it, to fulfill. When they get to that verse, and that was our finishing sword as Messianic, and they fail to realize that Yahshua did fulfill all things. When he said, when you can see in John 19 easily, when he sees that all things have been accomplished, and he declares it is finished. If you miss that, and this spirals into, it's like gangrene, like Paul says. It just gets worse and worse. It goes into Acts 10, which is a minefield, I call it. If you don't steer Acts 10 correctly, and that's the big one. Acts 10 is where hopefully you made that wrong turn, but no. These folks look at it this way. That's why I call Acts 10 a minefield. Whoa, kill and eat has nothing to do with animals. It has nothing to do with animals because Peter said. And besides, this is the number one argument. And besides, if Yahshua the Messiah did away with the kosher food laws, then how come Peter didn't get the memo? He's still practicing kosher. And that's when you realize, wow, they totally failed to realize he was told 10 years ago, too, out of their mouths. Now that they've confessed it's been 10 years, okay, well, how come he hasn't gone to all the nations and fed his sheep? Blinded, because they made that wrong turn with Matthew 5:17 and John 19. This is why Yahweh helped get me out of that. That was my finishing sword, and otherwise Yahweh had to, and my life is a witness to that. No man helped get me out as a Messianic. I wanted to stay. It took me. That's why I went years in darkness. Years in darkness. I won't change a thing. I'm not a victim. But it was the power of Yahweh and through him, through the Holy Spirit. Otherwise, like with Paul, what was given to me, folks, it not just me. Don't get me wrong. I'm nobody. I'm below y'all. But what was given to me, folks, was not given by any man. It was coming by, I give Yahweh all the glory in Yahshua Messiah's name. I have nothing. Just doing my job. With that being said and done, let's focus again on the matter. Acts 10 becomes a minefield, and then it goes into Acts 15, the Jerusalem Council and the starter pack lie. And then Galatians 2:11, it just gets worse with these groups and these people that teach this false doctrine. And then it carries over to Colossians 2:16-17. You're going to see right here a classic example. Nothing but love to SHEEPDOG Ministries. He seems like a good guy. I've never met him and his family. I mean that, but get this stuff off of YouTube. So I got to keep doing my job, folks, and that's exactly what I intend to do. So let's just get started on this. Show you what I'm talking about. And I've done videos on Sheepdog with Colossians 2:16, but I'm going to show you folks why what I'm about to show you is gonna just prove to you the gangrene and how this turns into doctrines of demons. First, let's hear what he has to say about Colossians 2:16 through 17. Colossians 2:16 through 17.
Colossians 2:16 through 17 is often used as a proof text against people that keep the Torah, to say that we don't have to keep the dietary laws or the feast days or the Sabbaths. However, when taught in context, Colossians 2:16 through 17 actually supports the observance of Torah. Colossians 2, therefore let no one pass judgment on you in questions of food and drink, or with regard to a festival or a new moon or a Sabbath. These are a shadow of things to come, but the substance belongs to Christ. First of all, let's do a little history lesson on Colossae. Colossae is in modern-day Turkey. Colossae is right here, and way over here in the green is Israel. I want you to take note how far away Colossae is from Israel. There are no planes, trains, or cars. Colossae is a Gentile nation with no Jewish influence. So think about the words spoken in Colossians 2. They were not in the heart of Israel. Who would be judging them for not keeping the dietary laws, or not keeping the festivals, or not keeping the new moons or Sabbaths? These people did not grow up doing any of these things. They didn't grow up with the dietary laws. They didn't grow up with new moons or Sabbaths or festivals. There would be nobody to judge them. In fact, when taught in context, it's the exact opposite. These people were coming out of pagan religions, starting to keep the Sabbath, starting to keep the dietary laws, starting to keep the feast days. And they were being judged for doing that. Just like when Sabbath keepers start keeping the dietary laws and start keeping the feast days of God and the Sabbaths. They were coming out of the world. They were coming out of that pagan religion, that pagan way of living, in favor of living a life for God, and they were being judged for it. And when Paul says these are a shadow of the things to come, but the substance belongs to Christ, he is 1,000,000,000% correct. The Sabbath is a foreshadow of Christ's millennial reign. The Sabbath is the 7th day, and Christ's millennial reign is the 7,000th year, and it's going to be a time of peace and rest, just like the Sabbath is supposed to symbolize. And every single feast day tells the story of Jesus. The gospel is in all the feast days of Leviticus 23. If you're curious about that, I have a few videos about it in my Sabbath and Holidays playlist. When you actually study the context and the culture of Colossae at the time that this was written, there's absolutely no way you can use these words in opposition to Torah observance.
I'll stop him right there. You heard what Sheepdog said. Okay, the book of Colossians was written between 60 and 62 CE. 60 to 61, 60 to 62 of the Common Era. Okay? Now, hold that thought. The Jerusalem Council, the events of Acts 15, okay, that took place roughly 10 to 11 years before the book of Colossians was written. One more time. The Jerusalem Council, the events of Acts 15, took place roughly 10 to 11 years before Paul writes the book of Colossians. Even Sheepdog knows that, okay? Now, you heard what Sheepdog said. There was no Jewish presence in Colossae. Colossae is way over here, 1,000 miles away from Jerusalem, from Israel, from Judea. Judea is way over here. Colossians way over here. Look at the distance. He's right. He's right. From a geographic standpoint, he's right. Okay, these were Gentile newbies. There was no Jewish influence. Look how far away it is. You heard what he said. Matter of fact, one more time. One more time.
First of all, let's do a little history lesson on Colossae. Colossae is in modern-day Turkey. Colossae is right here.
That's correct.
Way over here in the green is Israel.
That's correct.
I want you to take note how far away Colossae is from Israel. There are no planes.
I think it's over 1,000. I believe it's about 1,000 miles. About 1,000 miles.
Trains, or cars.
And he's right about that. There are no planes, trains, and automobiles in that era. He's correct.
Colossae is a Gentile nation with no Jewish influence.
With no Jewish influence. There is no Jewish influence in Colossae at that time, is what he's just telling y'all right there.
So think about the words spoken in Colossians 2. They were not in the heart of Israel. Who would be judging them for not keeping the dietary laws, or not keeping the festivals, or not keeping the new moons or Sabbaths? These people did not grow up doing any of these things. They didn't grow up with the dietary laws. They didn't grow up with new moons or Sabbaths or festivals.
That is true.
There would be nobody to judge them. In fact, when taught in context, it's the exact opposite. These people were coming out of pagan religions.
That's true.
Starting to keep the Sabbath, starting to keep the dietary laws, starting to keep the feast days.
And that's what got them in trouble. That's what Paul is telling them, no. Now, hold that thought right there, folks. Hold that thought. Now, let's go over to Sheepdog Ministry as he's going to explain Acts 15 and the Jerusalem Council, what I call the starter pack lie. Remember, folks, Acts 15, like I said, the book of Colossians was written around 60 to 62 CE. Acts 15, the Jerusalem Council, takes place 10 to 11 years earlier. So Acts 15, the Jerusalem Council, that takes place around 50 of the Common Era. Colossians isn't for another 10 or 11 years down the road. So, is there a Jewish presence in Colossae when the Jerusalem Council is taking place? No, of course not. If there's no Jewish presence in Colossae in the year 60, when Colossians was written, well, there's no Jewish presence in Colossae in the year 50, which is 10 years earlier. Remember, there's no planes, trains, and automobiles, like he said. All right, so now let's hear him bring up what I call the starter pack lie, the false teaching. This is what gets them in trouble, folks. These are men that desire to be teachers of the law. They confidently affirm they know what they're saying, but they don't know what they are saying. Let's hear him talk about Acts 15. This is actually a 2.5 hour video, but he doesn't get to this part that I'm going to focus on till right about here.
To say, if you do know that it's sacrifice to idols or something you're not supposed to eat, you need to decline on the sake of conscience, not only for yours, but for theirs also. So Paul literally goes on to say it's not okay to eat meat sacrificed to idols. So Paul wasn't rewriting God's laws, and he doesn't have the ability to do that. Even if he was the apostle to the Gentiles, there is nothing in Scripture to support him having the right to change God's laws. Sorry, doesn't exist. But meat sacrificed to idols, things strangled and have blood, all dietary. So people thinking that the dietary laws don't matter, right? And again, why? Like, logically think about this with me. If sexual immorality is a sin, if you can defile your body with sex, why can't you defile your body with food? If being a glutton is a sin, how come you can defile your body with the amount of food you eat, but not with what that food actually is? What about being a drunkard? If you can defile your body with alcohol, why can't you defile it with food? Dietary laws matter. They still matter. And 3 of the 4 that he said, make sure you're not doing, are dietary laws. Some food for thought, pun intended. Now, let's get into the next portion of this, Acts 15:21. Let's read this again. This is, again, a very here's your sign kind of a moment. Acts 15:21. For from ancient generations, Moses has had in every city those who proclaim him, for he is read every Sabbath in the synagogues. Why would he even say this? if keeping the laws of God was in question in Acts 15.
Stop him right there. So Moses from of old has had in every city. Moses is read in every city. Right? One more time. One more time. This is what's going to get him in trouble.
We need to obey God or not. That's not an opinion. That is. You need to decline on the sake of conscience, not only for yours, but for theirs also. So Paul literally goes on to say it's not okay to eat meat sacrificed to idols. So Paul wasn't rewriting God's laws, and he doesn't have the ability to do that. Even if he was the apostle to the Gentiles, there is nothing in Scripture to support him having the right to change God's laws. Sorry, doesn't exist. But meat sacrificed to idols, things strangled and of blood, all dietary. So people thinking that the dietary laws don't matter, right? And again, why? Like, logically think about this with me. If sexual immorality is a sin, if you can defile your body with sex, why can't you defile your body with food? If being a glutton is a sin, how come you can defile your body with the amount of food you eat, but not with what that food actually is? What about being a drunkard? If you can defile your body with alcohol, why can't you defile it with food? Dietary laws matter. They still matter. And 3 of the 4 that he said, make sure you're not doing, are dietary laws. Some food for thought. Pun intended. Now, let's get into the next portion of this. Acts 15:21. Let's read this again. This is, again, a very here's your sign kind of a moment. Acts 15:21. For from ancient generations, Moses has had in every city those who proclaim him, for he is read every Sabbath in the synagogues.
Wait a minute. What about Colossae? There's no Jewish presence in the city of Colossae. There is no. Colossae is way over here. Israel's way over here. There is no planes, trains, and automobiles. There is no Jewish presence in Colossae. There is no Jewish presence in Colossae. Now all of a sudden, well, Moses has in every city, all of a sudden magically in the year 50, there's a Jewish presence in Colossae. But then when we get to Colossians, there's no Jewish presence here. One more time. One more time. This is right. Doctrines of demons. Lies filled with hypocrisy. Okay, so if Moses has from ancient times read in every city in the synagogues, then that means including Colossae, right? Sheepdog, help me out.
Colossae. Colossae is in modern day Turkey.
Right.
Colossae is right here.
Right.
Way over here in the green is Israel.
But remember, Moses has in every city from ancient times, he is read in the synagogues in every city, so that there's a Jewish presence in Colossae. Right, Sheepdog?
I want you to take note how far away Colossae is
Yes,
from Israel.
about
There
1,000
are no
miles.
planes, trains, or cars.
Correct.
Colossae is a Gentile nation
Right.
with no Jewish influence.
No Jewish, so there is no synagogue where Moses is read in Colossae. There is no synagogue then in the city of Colossae where Moses is read every Sabbath. Right, Sheepdog? Right. And then here you are telling people with the Acts 15 starter pack lie. I'll let you go ahead. You're walking right into it.
Why would he even say this?
I don't know.
If keeping the laws of God was in question in Acts 15. If it's determined that you maybe you just need to do these 4 couple of laws here, why would he even say that? It makes no sense. He's literally alluding to people keeping the Sabbath and continuing to learn and grow more. learn more laws, observe more laws. No matter where you are, Moses has in every city those who proclaim him, and he is read every Sabbath day in the synagogues.
Okay, one problem. Then how do the Colossians learn Moses if there's no synagogue in Colossae? Let's go back again. What did we see in 1 Timothy 5? Men, I'll show you again, folks, before we let them. Well, again, he who digs a ditch for others to fall in is going to fall into it himself.
History lesson on Colossae.
Give us a history lesson.
Colossae is in modern day Turkey. Colossae
Yes.
is right here.
Right.
And way over here in the green is Israel.
Right.
I want you to take note how far away Colossae is from Israel.
About
There are no
1,000.
planes, trains, or cars.
Maybe 1,000 miles. Okay.
Colossae is a Gentile nation with no Jewish influence.
No Jewish influence. No Jewish influence. Okay. So, over here, it's a starter pack. You got to understand, because Moses has in every city Jewish influences in synagogues so that they could learn the rest of Moses in the synagogue. But then when I get to Colossians, see, folks, this is what I'm telling y'all. I give you that analogy and that fork in the road. When you miss that turn, as you hear these guys, and what these guys, even that I had just a while ago, MTOI, the Messianic Torah observant Israel, that group there, the same thing. Listen, as you start to go down, when you get to Acts 10, Acts 15, Galatians 2, Colossians 2, when you begin to hear their false teaching to try to make sense of Paul, it turns into gangrene. It's like it's false teaching. I'm being humble about it. So 1 Timothy 1, this is what Paul's talking about. 1 Timothy 1:5, this is what you're hearing, folks. 1 Timothy 1:5, but the end of the charge is love out of a pure heart and a good conscience and faith unfringed, from which things some, having swerved, have turned aside to vain talking. Okay? To vain talking, desiring to be teachers of the law, though they understand neither what they say nor of what they confidently affirm. Colossae is here. Israel's over here. Okay? There was no planes, trains, and automobiles. Who would be judging them? There is no Jewish influence in Colossae. There's no Jewish, just like MTOIs. I mean, pretty much the same thing. It's pagan family and friends. They don't know what they're talking about. Then when you get them in Acts 15, the starter pack lie. See, verse 21 says clearly that Moses has had in every city from ancient times, including Colossae. Oh, no, not Colossae. No. In other words, a double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways. James 1, verse 8. Okay? This is what, and I love you, Sheepdog. Again, and those at MTY, again, never met them. Sheepdog Ministries, again, haven't met them either. But understand, folks, you're hearing it right there. If there's no Jewish presence in Colossae, and that's what you're telling people when you falsely teach Colossians 2:16, then how can you tell them when you start falsely teaching them the starter pack lie of Acts 15:21 that there is a Jewish presence in Colossae? Because Moses has had in every city from ancient times a synagogue where he is read every Sabbath. How can you, which one is it? In other words, then how are the Colossian brethren going to learn this starter pack lie if there's no synagogue and Jewish presence for them? Because that starter pack lie is a lie. It's false teaching. It's demonic doctrines. I've already done videos on that. Just clear. That's just one of it. But just to show you, then when you get to Colossians, you get this double-minded thing. Then when you get them to Galatians 2:11, you hear the most absurd things from these groups that desire to be teachers of the law. They confidently affirm, they know they're saying, they have no idea what they are saying. Love you, folks. Yahweh bless you. And again, we'll talk again very soon.